So let me get this straight, man. There's possibly a minimum of a $2 trillion bailout for hedge funds and banks. Oh, so you mean to tell me these last 4 or 5 years, retail investors who invested in GameStop, AMC, and other ticker symbols that have been illegally naked shorted, you mean to tell me all these years they're telling us that everything is fine and that we don't know what we're talking about and this is a waste of time, so on and so forth. They said much uglier things than that, but I'm trying to keep it clean about retail investors. And now you're starting to see the cracks in the foundation of hedge funds and banks, man. You're seeing it. Actually, we've been seeing it for the past couple of years, but it seems like there's something like really, I don't know, big time, maybe explosion that's about to happen behind the scenes, man. I don't think they wanted President Trump in the White House, and I think this is one of the reasons why. Because there's so much nefarious things that happens in the stock market. We know, for one, Congress front run stocks to enrich themselves, and there's been suspicion by retail investors on why the SEC would not move against hedge funds, and they would give them these little small little fees, and next thing you know, they're writing off what, $10 billion in fees they never collected. So basically the criminals get away with harsh words. That's it, you know. And now we have this. We got a $2 trillion bailout that is buzzing right now. It's buzzing all over X and other platforms. But let's take a look, man. Let's take a look at what one of the posts on X talking about Citadel. So this was posted by Greg is Kitty. GameStop sounds the alarm again. Citadel just admitted something insane. They reported 2 trillion in gross derivative exposure. 2 trillion. The company has concentration risk with respect to its derivative financial instruments. Doge and Doge SEC. How do you get concentration risk of 2 trillions? Number 3, 4 narrator. Naked short selling GameStop is how that happens. Shorts. Okay. See note 6 for risk management. Okay. Note 6 explicitly mentions short selling and explicitly mentions not owning those shares. Number 7, remember all those failures to delivers on GameStop, XRT, IWM. And you have 8, Bank of America is the main clearing agent for Citadel. Number 9, Warren Buffett trimmed his stake of Bank of America last quarter by $10.5 billion. Is this why? Warren Buffett coined the term derivative time bomb. Okay. 11, Ryan Cohen has been making a lot of Buffett references recently. He has, definitely. 12, in a short position, you can have unlimited loss. Note 6 again. 13, remember Roaring Kitty's price target? Just up. 14, pretty sure the cat discovered how they're naked shorting GameStop. And 15, the wild card is coming, and the roaring kitty will expose them. Moas tomorrow, as always is. So I think this is interesting, especially with. Well, you know what? Let me show you. Let me show you this next video, because this is the gentleman that owns Citadel.
I really do hope that President Trump sees the writing on the wall. He lost in 2020. We lost Georgia because of his behavior in the Senate race in 2020. That's a second loss. And then this year, the Republicans lost the Senate because the Trump-backed candidates in the Senate races were rejected by American voters. That's a 3-time loser. And I'd like to think that the Republican Party is ready to move on from somebody who's been, for this party, a 3-time loser.
I don't ever give stock advice. I do love GameStop, the company. I love AMC, the company, Highcroft, the company. They just seem like really good companies, man, and I support them. But I want to take your attention to this video, man, in ITM trading. I checked this video out. I love the information that this woman brings. In this video that I'm about to show you, She brings the heat, man. And I know there's a lot of people that have been in this fight for 4 or 5 years, man. And they love, or we love, what's happening right now. I mean, we're starting to see, um, we still got some questions. We wish the current administration would move a little faster, but there is some movement.
The Federal Reserve is quietly preparing a multi-trillion-dollar bailout, and it's all
Wow.
because one of Wall Street's riskiest hedge fund trades is imploding fast. While stock markets whipsaw and trade war tensions with China escalate, a much bigger crisis is brewing just underneath the surface in the bond market. But this isn't just a problem for Wall Street. Hedge funds are blowing up, liquidity is vanishing, and the Fed is eyeing a multi-trillion-dollar injection just to stop the bleeding.
Hedge funds. So I just wanted to interject really quick. These are the people that are smart money, right? These are the people that have been entrusted with investors' money, and they're supposedly the smart money. And what do we have here? They are in trouble once again. The people that are blessed with money and power have fumbled the ball again. Once again, we are here. And most of Americans do not even realize what is happening with their 401ks and with their retirements. They have no idea. They don't want to know. I understand. They're not investors like we are, you know. So the people that have to bail them out is the American citizens. Once again, it falls on our shoulders if this is approved, right? My suggestion is this, and I know there is millions upon millions of retail investors that agree. The transfer of wealth needs to happen. It needs to go from the haves to the have-nots. It needs to go from the 1% to the 99%. We need to take that money away because they obviously do not know how to handle money and power, right? We have made the right investments. And for the last 4 to 5 years, and I'm talking strictly about GameStop and AMC investments, right? And other companies that are in similar situations, they have been telling us that we were wrong. And all along, these two companies are supposedly going out of business, right? Well, they're ramping up that rhetoric again. They're ramping up that negative propaganda to try to scare people. And what you don't realize is retail investors are here to stay. By and large, they are here to stay. We are here to stay. That's where you guys messed up. You didn't account for people actually saying, hey, enough is enough. I'm going to educate myself and understand what this gentleman, Mr. Kitty, is talking about. Oh, that's what they're doing. Oh, this is how they kick the can down the road. This is how they cheat the game. We have we basically have the hedge funds and banks playbook, the illegal naked shorting playbook, the counterfeiting racket you guys have done for however long, making counterfeit shares, illegal naked shorting. And here we are. Now, these people, the smart money, they need a bailout. They need the people to bail them out. No, we need a transfer of wealth.
But if this spiral continues, we could see mortgage rates rise, retirement counts disappear, and even bank bail-ins threatening you and your financial security. So how did the safest asset in the world, U.S. Treasuries, become the epicenter of systemic risk? What does this fallout mean for you and your financial future? And most importantly, how can you use this knowledge to protect yourself before it's too late? Let's get into it. In case you missed it, last week I reported on a massive vulnerability in the U.S. Treasury market that almost no one is watching, the hedge fund basis trade. Now, It sounds boring, safe almost, to exploit tiny price differences between US Treasuries and futures. But here's the problem. They're doing it with massive amounts of borrowed funds. We're talking 10-to-1 leverage or more. These hedge funds, they're betting hundreds of billions on what should be tiny, stable spreads. In fact, these hedge funds now hold roughly $1 trillion of US Treasury securities, meaning that they account for 11% of the entire market alone. So if they're forced to unwind, the exposure could balloon upwards of $8 trillion. Now, typically, when the stock market plunges, we see money flood into bonds as a safe bet. But this past week, we've been seeing the opposite, a bond market sell-off, causing a lot of volatility. And for these highly leveraged funds, any small shift is dangerous, but this kind of volatility is deadly. So who is selling and causing all of this? Well, this is where the plot thickens. See, as trade war tensions with China grow, it is the lenders behind the hedge funds, these large financial institutions, who are getting spooked about being paid back. So they are pulling liquidity from the hedge funds. They are saying, no more, we're not going to roll over these loans, and they're issuing margin calls, essentially to
Margin calls. Isn't that funny? They're issuing margin calls. So the banks are getting nervous, and for good reason, because over the last however many years, we've watched banks go out of business. We've watched banks get over leveraged, make bad decisions, and now look, out of business. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is going to get worse for these banks and these hedge funds.
demanding that the hedge funds put up more collateral. And as you can guess, these over-leveraged hedge funds, they just don't have it. So what are these hedge funds doing? They're initiating their own doom loop. They're scrambling to raise cash by selling off the only asset they have left, US Treasuries. Yes, that's right.
Treasuries.
The safest asset in the world, US Treasuries, is being dumped en masse by hedge funds. But this wave of forced selling, well, it's creating something we have seen before: systemic risk. The same phrase that prompted the 2008 bank bailouts, except this time it's not banks, it's hedge funds. And this time, instead of $700 billion, we could be staring down a multi-trillion-dollar bailout. Don't
I'm hearing that $2 trillion is the minimum. I'm hearing that this is going to be way large, a number that's way larger than the 2 trillion. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see.
believe me or don't think it's going to happen, I'll prove why it's not only possible, but very likely. First, 2 weeks ago, before Treasury yields spiked, financial experts and insiders were already urging the Fed to create a hedge fund bailout tool, meaning this crisis wasn't a surprise, it was anticipated, and in their minds, they already have the answer, the solution: a bailout. Second, this already happened in 2020 when margin calls hit Treasury futures. The same thing that's happening right now. What happened? The Fed stepped in and pledged trillions. We already know how this plays out. Third, if you want hard proof that something is breaking right now, that it's not just temporary volatility, all you have to do is look at the SOFR spread, the secured overnight financing rate, a key indicator in measuring bond market stress. When it drops, it means banks are panicking, liquidity is drying up, and we are in trouble. Let's look at it together. You can see right here that spread drops to a record low, meaning that the system is seizing up. In simple terms, money is not flowing. Institutions are dumping even high quality assets just to raise cash. This chart alone shows us that this system is screaming things are not okay. But here's the scariest part. The unwind has only just begun, and the Fed, they're cornered. Either way, we lose. If they choose to bail out hedge funds, well, we already know how that plays out. Inflation will skyrocket, and it will be you and I who pay, while those who were reckless with their debt will walk away untouched. But if the Fed waits too long, it puts the entire Treasury market at risk. The Treasury market, which is the underpinning of the global financial system. It would make what happened this past week in the stock market look like nothing. We could expect to see a serious crash, 401ks, retirement plans, IRAs, all that are tied up and rely heavily on bonds, those would all be seriously impacted.
Sound familiar? So basically, this is happening all over again. The people that have been entrusted with the money and the power, once again, are reckless with our money. They have gotten greedy. And then what happens to them? Nothing. They get a spank on the hand. No one goes to prison. And it is the people that have been robbed, the retail investors, the American citizens. So we get robbed. Not only do we get robbed by hedge funds and banks that use our own money to rob us, we have we are the constituents of politicians, and what do? They go ahead and front run stocks as well, enrich themselves at the detriment of the American citizen, the taxpayer. So we're getting robbed with our taxpayer money that's going to USAID or whatever, and these NGOs, and they're enriching themselves that way. You got politicians front running stocks and making money that way, enriching themselves. And now you have these hedge funds and these banks who use our money against us, right? They're allowed to do all these nefarious things, create illegal naked shorts, run them through dark pools, got payment for order flow, you got failures to deliver, you got derivative swaps, you got all these things. They have the media weaponized against us. All these things that are against us. And what's going to happen potentially? They get bailed out, and the American taxpayer has to have that burden on their shoulders. Unfucking believable.
We could see credit freeze, businesses fail, and of course, inflation leading to hyperinflation, meaning the cost of everyday living would go through the roof. And yet, that's not even the worst part, because there is one more consequence of this that could change our lives forever. Now, zoom out with me for a second and look at the United States on a global level. It's no secret that for years, nations have been reducing their reliance on the dollar and moving away from dollar reserves. I talk about this all of the time, but now something has changed. Instead of slowly reducing their holdings or slowly buying less, it's almost as if these nations have been given a green light to stop buying U.S. treasuries, that maybe, just maybe, there are safer options out there, and for once, they don't have to fear retaliation from the United States. And stay with me on this one, because it ties directly to U.S. banks and your savings. Now, the U.S. government, they sell U.S. treasuries at auction to finance the debt. Debt that, as we all know, is costing us over $1 trillion annually just on the interest. But what happens when demand for that debt drops? The government has to raise rates to attract new buyers, making the debt even more unsustainable. And that's exactly what just happened. This week, a U.S. Treasury auction saw shockingly weak demand from investors. But when foreign buyers don't step up, guess who is forced to? U.S. banks. This week, U.S. banks bought a whopping 20.7% of total auctioned debt, meaning two things. Number one, global confidence in the United States and the U.S. dollar is weakening. Number two, U.S. banks are now forced to hold all of this unwanted risk. But here's where it gets personal. When banks are forced to buy up all of these treasury bonds, well, what happens when the value drops or volatility increases? Now these banks are sitting on massive unrealized losses, something we've already seen that we cannot afford to get worse. These are the same institutions that are supposed to be protecting our deposits. And under the current rules, it's not the government who's going to be forced to save these banks anymore. No, it's you. Under Frank Dodd, it's you and me and everyday Americans whose finances can be used to plug this hole. Ask yourself, if Treasury demand keeps collapsing and banks are forced to keep buying, how safe are your funds in your bank really? And before someone out there says, oh, bank bail-ins, that will never happen, it has happened in Lebanon, Cyprus, Greece, and before someone else says, okay, but that's not the United States, it actually has happened here in the United States. A couple of months ago, a failed Oklahoma bank, First National Bank of Lindsay, they weren't bailed out. They weren't bought out. No, anyone in there who had over $250,000, all of the uninsured deposits were taken to make the bank whole again. Now, I had
Wow.
never heard of this until one of our viewers, Pat, wrote in to tell me about it because I'm guessing they didn't want it to make national news. But make no mistake, you can sit there and say, well, they shouldn't have had more than the insured amount. But there is a reason that they made sure everyone knew that with Silicon Valley Bank, all of the depositors were made whole again. They don't want anyone questioning if your cash is safe in banks. And I'm not sitting here proposing a bank run, but I am saying this was just the tip of the iceberg. If you think that even the up to 250,000 will be safe, think again. We've seen how bank bail-ins play out in other countries. We know that accounts can be frozen for years. And what happens during that time period? They devalue or revalue the currency, meaning not only can you not access your funds, but whatever you had in there is worth tremendously less by the time you even get access. And that's depending on how much they let you have. And if you still don't believe me, you can hear it straight from the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation themselves. In one of their meetings, they laughed at the American people for not knowing about what bail-ins were and think it's better that way because they don't want people scared.
I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do.
These are the people who make sure your deposits are safe. Let's call it what it is. The government offloads their debt onto banks. Banks then carry the risk, and burdened by the debt with all of these losses, you become the backstop. But while
Isn't that crazy? So if okay, so a couple of things. I'm just a regular schmegler guy. And a lot of us are regular schmeglers that have taken it upon ourselves to educate ourselves in this thing we call investing in the stock market, banks, hedge funds. We want to know how the whole thing works. Okay, so this last 5 years has just been one big classroom. And the things that we've discovered and we've found out has made us more aware, better investors, and it's made a lot of us sick to our stomachs. But we're not going anywhere. There's companies that we believe in, and we believe that a lot of these companies are unfairly targeted, predatory shorting, illegal naked short selling, right? The thing with the banks, a lot of us didn't know this information that she's provided, right? Some of us did, like AMC Bigham. Shout out to AMC Bigham. He's been telling people to get out of Vista banks for years. Look into and I'm just just repeating what a lot of people have said before. Take a look at your local credit union and see if that's a better fit for your money. They want us uninformed. They actually want us uneducated. They don't want us to educate ourselves to understand how our money could potentially be in jeopardy in these banks, and these banks are in trouble. They don't want us educated on how the stock market really works. They don't want us educated on dark pools, failures to delivers. They don't want us educated on how naked shorting actually works, illegal naked shorting. All of these things, retail investors have taken upon themselves to learn these past 5 years. You take a look at what she had said in the beginning of that video, gold. People are saying, okay, you know what? I want something tangible. I want something that I can hold, something that's going to hold value over, the history of mankind. Looking at gold. People are looking at gold. People are looking at silver. Well, hey, guess what? Who owns a gold and silver mine? AMC. And a lot of the AMC investors have not only bought AMC, but have also bought HYMC, which is a gold and silver mine. So a lot of this stuff is coming together. Thank you for the information that she provided. Thank you to Bigham's, who's been saying this for years. Boss Blunts, who's been saying this for years, and many others who's been holding the line and fighting for retail investors and the education of retail investors. Just keep this in mind. This is education. I'm just out here talking out loud. I'm thinking out loud, I should say. I'm just thinking out loud, trying to walk through this whole thing. But this is education for me, and this is education for a lot of you guys. Shout out to Soika for educating the community as well. I appreciate these people, man. And go out and find the information yourself, man. Keep educating yourselves. Keep going to the movies. Keep supporting gamers. Keep supporting movies, theatrical movies. Keep supporting, keep supporting. Aharo.